Welcome back, everybody, to the Choose to Think Inspirational podcast. I'm so glad that you're tuning in today. You're in for a real treat. I have Erica Wiggenhorn on the call with me today. So if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. If you're just listening on audio, wherever you listen to podcasts, thank you so much. Let me tell you about Erica. She is the founder of Every Life Ministries, bringing the truths of Scripture to transform lives with an unexpected revival. And this is the book that I'm holding in my hand right now. It's called An Unexpected Revival. Being her fifth release from Moody Publishers, she also serves on the writing team for Proverbs 31 Ministries, First 5 teaching app. She teaches in various local and national venues and serves on the women's ministry leadership team for her church. She's also taught women in the Arizona State prison system and overseas. Erica loves to bring God's word through Bible teaching, conferences, seminars, and retreats. A graduate of Azusa Pacific University, Erica lives in Phoenix with her husband, Jonathan, and their two children, Eliana and Nathan. And it's Eliana. Some of you will know Asbury University. Eliana is attending Asbury. Is it okay that I share that? It's just so cool for my listeners. Yeah. What a great connection. Yeah. And anyway, welcome, Erica, to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be in Kentucky for a minute and feel close to my daughter. I miss her. She just started back at Asbury, and so it's fun to be here.
Oh, I was telling Erica before we started recording that I used to teach at Asbury. I taught there for, I think, maybe 4 years, and just what a wonderful college campus. Oh, I miss going there. It was so vibrant. The foreign language program was so exciting there as well. So she's in good hands. I know that for sure. And we'll just pray blessings over her ministry, over her experience there at Asbury and her studies. But what I have in my hand, the book, An Unexpected Revival, which is mainly what we're going to chat about today. It's an 8-week Bible study on Ezekiel. The subtitle is Experiencing God's Goodness Through Disappointment and Doubt. And so one of the questions that I have, which is really answered in the book, but if you don't mind sharing with the listeners and the viewers, Erica, is why Ezekiel?
Right? Like, who has actually studied the book of Ezekiel, right? I say
that's right.
It's kind of like stepping into the middle of a science fiction movie and trying to figure out what's going on, right? It's just all these crazy visions and stories, and you're like, what is happening here? So it's actually a little bit of a crazy story, to be honest, Victoria. I was sitting in church one day, and I had been studying the book of Ezekiel, but how God led me to that point was I was in a very dark time in my life. A lot of things were not going the way that I had planned them to go. I was full of disappointment, let's put it that way. And I had grown up with a theology that taught me that if I was a good Christian girl and I checked all the boxes and I did everything right, that was going to mean that God would bless me. And I was in a season where my father was dying. We had moved and we were in a huge financial predicament. I had recently stopped working, stepped into the realm of motherhood, and was completely overwhelmed and not sure being a stay-at-home mom was really what I was good at. And there were just a lot of things that were crashing around me. We had moved. I didn't have any friends. And I began to cry out to the Lord because I was like, I feel like I'm checking all the boxes. I feel like I'm trying to be a good wife and a good mom. And, you know, I'm going to Bible study every Tuesday, and I'm going to church on Sunday, and I'm trying to, you know, volunteer, but life is not good. And it brought me to a little bit of a crisis of my faith. Actually, I don't want to say that. I want to say a crisis of faith, but it brought me to a crisis of theology. And I cried out to God and I said, does it grieve your heart that we do all of these things just so that you'll bless us, but not because we actually really want to know you as our creator and as our father. And in that moment, I sensed God say to me, study the book of Ezekiel. Now, I don't know about you, Victoria, but I don't have a lot of these clear-cut moments in my life where I sense in my heart that I have, heard something internally in prayer that God has told me so specifically to do. I can count the times on one hand that I've experienced that. And so I kind of brushed it off because, in all honesty, I was crazy busy and didn't really have a whole lot of time to explore and take on something else, but God wouldn't let it go. To the point where I just kept hearing Ezekiel everywhere I turned. We went to the grocery store. My son throws this huge whopping tantrum in the front of the buggy. We hit the end cap of the aisle, and literally a dozen loaves of Ezekiel bread fall on top of me, right? So I was like, okay, right. I've never even read this book of the Bible, but I'll go home and I'll take a look at it. So I went home, I opened up my Bible, and it was my study Bible. And at the beginning, it literally jumped off the page at me because it said, God's heart was grieved because his people only wanted his blessings, but they didn't want him. And I knew in that moment that, no, it wasn't a figment of my imagination. God had spoken, and I began studying the book of Ezekiel. And through the book of Ezekiel, I realized that, man, probably more than the Gospels, where we talk about God himself clothed in human flesh, dying for us, shedding his blood for us. There is no other section of scripture that so beautifully portrays the desire of God to be close to his people than this prophetic book. And it brought revival to my life.
I love that story. I loved reading about it. And I even laughed about the whole Ezekiel bread and how it seems like Ezekiel was just coming out of the woodwork everywhere you turned. That was so curious, and how God works in such mysterious ways sometimes and so overtly. It's just really interesting how that came about. And I was also, as I was reading through your book, Erica, I was captivated by how you did such an amazing job actually applying the scripture, the life of Ezekiel, the historical events that were happening. You made application in a personal way to 21st century Christians. And that is one of the passions that I have for this podcast. It's kind of to uncover, what does it really mean to be a 21st century Christian? Even the thought of having the mind of Christ, which just blows my mind. Okay, I do. And what does that mean? And how do I begin to apply that? Those types of things, to put practical application to our faith. Not that we can always do that, but certainly it's a longing of my heart to be able to connect the dots in that way. What you wrote and how you wrote and the way you wove it in and out were really, really spectacular and impactful and meaningful, I think. And I think anyone who, for a Sunday school class, a Wednesday night Bible study at church, or even just on your own as I read it, would just be so encouraged. And it's not just a historical analysis or a let's dig deep into what was going on at this time. It is also, yes, all of that, but on top of that, what difference does it make in our lives? And I love that part of it. I want to go to just a few captions, and that I kind of picked out a few little sections of the book where you actually talked about thoughts, because again, just to reiterate, the listeners know, or if you're new to the podcast, you'll soon find out that we do have a running theme throughout our shows, each episode, and we really do drill down a bit on our thinking, because as you think, so you are. And if you don't like how you are, the good news is that you can undo a lot of faulty thinking and old lies or enemy darts or negative mindsets, you can kind of undo those chemically in your brain and shift your thinking about who God says He is, what God says about you, and what God says about your circumstances. And you energize those types of thoughts, your life will change and you will be transformed through the renewing of your mind. So I'm always on the lookout when I'm reading for people who broach that topic or the topic of our thoughts. And I'm reading on page 45, but it says this, so it's early in the book at this point, but you said you were encouraging your reader to, as they were closing that day's study, to pause and ask the Lord to show you where any faulty thinking has crept into your own life. For example, is there an area, and I'm reading here, is there an area of pride or self-sufficiency where you have ceased to depend on the Lord for your care? Maybe you have allowed standards to slip and you have defiled yourself, as Ezekiel cried out against, to the Lord. And then you said, are you neglecting family, demonstrating financial irresponsibility, partnering with people with questionable commitments to the Lord's will for their lives, avoiding confrontation, turning a blind eye to sin, not speaking up for the truth, continuing to pursue an unhealthy or destructive habit? Now, there's so much there that we could really unpack, but I thought I would love to have your take on why is faulty thinking such a trap for us 21st century Christians?
Oh, I love this question so much, Victoria. If you go on my website, ericawiggenhorn.com, the very first thing that you'll see there is that, our whole ministry at Every Life Ministries exists to bring the scripture to transform your life, right? And I think as 21st century Christians, we live in a culture where information is everything. We are an information-driven culture. And we live under this guise that if we have the right information, we can do anything.
Right.
And we apply that cultural lens to our time in God's Word. And so we will go to Bible study, to church, to a class, and the thought behind it is I'm going for information. I need to learn God's Word. And yes, we do need to learn God's Word, but the primary purpose of God's Word is not information, it's transformation. It's to change us from the inside out. It's to allow the Holy Spirit to become the loudest voice in our lives rather than all of the noise of the world. And so I think the trap that we fall into as 21st century Christians, Victoria, is that we approach that cultural mindset when it comes to our relationship with God. God does not want to spend time with us just so He can give us information. He wants to spend time with us because He wants to bring transformation. He wants to bring us victory from faulty thinking. He wants to expose lies that we believe. He wants to show us where we have a faulty perception of who we are. He wants to uncover things that have been spoken over us in the past that we have allowed to take root into our heart and mind, and they're dictating our choices and our emotions now. So we've got to transform our mindset of how we view our relationship with God. If we're a parent, or even if we're a child, so literally everyone can get this if you have a parent, parents don't long to spend time with their children just because they have a bunch of information they want to give them, right? They want to spend time with them because they want intimacy and relationship, right? They want to connect with them. They want to remind them and show them how much they love them and that they are loved. It's intimacy, it's community, it's relationship. That is how we need to think about our time in God's Word, our time in church, our time in Bible study. Not like an alternative to searching something on Google. I'm now going to search in this book and get information.
That's really good, Erica. And I hear you saying a little bit like, let's focus on the privileges that we have being Christians, not just the obligation side of things, quote, obligation, the relationship, not religion aspects of all of that. And what you also said about parent-child is made me think of pickleball. My husband and I play pickleball, and he is a far superior player than I am. And he has a lot that he can teach me. We just played something called skinny singles last night. We were playing, and let me tell you, it was just so much fun. It was fun because we were laughing, and sometimes I would get a really good shot in on him, and he would be like, "Wow, what is that?" And in other words, he wasn't just always instructing me and saying, "Oh, Victoria, hold your paddle at 11 o'clock, like this on those heavy hitters that are coming after you," or "Victoria, you need to back up off the baseline or come quicker to the kitchen line." Or he could have done that, and sometimes he does that, and I need that from him because I value his expertise. So sometimes, yes, we need to know who got it. We do need to know the word, like you said, because it helps us. We need that base, but yet it was also so just encouraging and edifying and fun and relational just to play pickleball and laugh and have fun, because I got to spend time with him. He could have been at home working on a project, or he could have been working late at the office, or I could have said, "No, I need to run over here and help so-and-so," or 1,001 things. But instead, we took time just to enjoy each other. And that kind of reminded me of that, because it wasn't all instructional. It was relational, and I was fed. And I was fed by his presence. And he even, we could keep going with the analogy, but I don't want to digress too much on that. But I love the picture. In my Christian journey, it has helped so much to picture me as a parent and how I would treat my children, and God as a parent and how he treats me. And that is just, that whole concept, the parent-child thing, has really helped me. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I'm going in no order here other than the way I've got my sticky notes in on your book called An Unexpected Revival, which I also like the fact that you bring revival to modern day, revival in a personal way. That was another thing I remember as I was reading through it. We can think of revival like those big revivals in church history, and those things come to mind, but yet, okay, God also breathes life into dead bones, like Ezekiel, and he can do that on a very personal and intimate level as well. I'm looking now, I've skipped to page 135, and you're talking about sour sayings. What are some of the sour sayings you may have heard while you were growing up? And again, sometimes I say self-limiting thoughts, but I prefer to say God-limiting thoughts, because sometimes we may be limiting ourselves, but really are we limiting God as well? But what you're speaking about here is talking about things that were spoken over us, maybe as kids, or generational type issues or sins. And some of the thoughts that you pinned on this section were, I come from a family of yellers, so of course I'm a yeller, for example. My parents used to comfort me with food, so of course I'm going to go to the bag of, I'm adding in now a little bit, like, okay, I'm going to go to the bag of Doritos. What do you expect? My mom used to keep things from my dad just to keep the peace. What happens in this house stays in this house. Or here's one just like that. We don't air our dirty laundry. Sometimes you hear that. You'd better stop that crying before I give you something to cry about. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. What shame you will bring upon this family. Man, that's a big one to unpack right there. And you will never amount to a hill of beans. That's what we say in Kentucky. So, all of those sour sayings that may have been spoken over us, we learned as a kid, we kind of have to step out from under those. And how do we really go about shifting from those types of mindsets, those types of thoughts, those caustic words or toxic words that were spoken over us? How do we step out of that, Erica?
Yeah, great question. One of the things that I often say, and we talk about this obviously in An Unexpected Revival, as you just read, several excerpts from it there, but only God knows the real us because he created us. Everyone else has a perception of us. Only God has a completely accurate view of who we are, and he knows us better than we know ourselves. And so if we're not spending time in his word, hearing how God describes us as his chosen children, beloved, adopted, knit together on purpose, for a purpose, redeemed, spotless, beautiful, apple of his eye. We need to be reminded of these things because the world is always going to speak sourly over us. And even when the world gives us those, you got this, girl, and you're amazing. There's always someone, if we just glance a little bit sideways, Victoria, there's always someone who's a little more amazing or doing a little more than we are. We have got to get in our daddy's lap. We have got to curl up in our daddy's lap and be reminded that we're not a mistake. We're not a failure. My daughter recently, she recently graduated from high school, and she had to come up with a saying for her senior night. And she came up with this marvelous saying, and she said, there is no failure. You either win or you learn. And I just thought that was so marvelous. I said, when did you come up with this? Because I really would have loved to put it in my Unexpected Revival book.
That's right.
Now, Eliana.
Yeah, I'm going to steal it for pickleball, by the way, because we do winners and losers. We're like, hey, you're a loser. Sorry, you lost. But hey, yeah, that's great.
But it's so true. And in the world's eyes, there always has to be a winner. And that means everybody else is a loser. But to have that understanding of, when things don't go my way, when I am not measuring up to the expectations that I put on myself, or I'm not meeting someone else's expectations, or maybe I feel like I'm disappointing God. I'm not a failure. I'm learning. I'm in the process of learning. And that's the beautiful thing about what God continues to talk to his people about over and over in the book of Ezekiel. And we talk about it constantly in an Unexpected Revival, is that God is transforming us. He is reviving us. He is bringing this dead, sin-soaked flesh back to life by the power of the Holy Spirit. And it's something only he can do. It's not something that you and I, Victoria, are going to wake up in the morning and we're going to take a good hard look in the mirror and we're going to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and we're going to go, today I'm going to be a great wife and I'm going to be a great mom and I'm never going to lose my temper with my kids and I'm only going to speak kindly to them and I'm not going to nag and I'm going to be a good employee and my house is going to be clean finally and I'm going to clean that closet out. It doesn't work like that. And that's not what God is after. He's not after our performance, after our heart.
So good, Erica. And I think what you just said, all of those, today I'm going to, oh my goodness, I did that for years. And I was very much performance-based. And even as after, I guess, almost 20 years of being a single mom of 4, I've just recently remarried. And I know my husband was very like, are you going to rate me? Are you going to, like grade me? Because I like to do these scales of 1 to 10. And like sometimes that's just helpful for me to know, like, how upsetting is that to you? Is it from 1 to 10? And if he says a 2, then I'm like, oh, phew, okay, then I'm not worrying about that. I do that with my kids all the time. I mean, I've just always done that, but that is somewhat, in some ways, it's this, can I be an A+ mom? And rats, I really goofed here. So I'm, I even stopped. I remember there was a point when I was striving so much that I said, forget the A mom. I'm going to go for B+, because I couldn't get the A. I felt like I could never measure up to the A. No, my best intentions, because you never can expect what your kids might do. You can't have the bandwidth for all these unexpected scenarios. And, well, how you were raised, and maybe think, oh, I want to do something different from how my parents did it. And I want to do these things that my parents did because that was so, a positive thing. And you kind of look at it like that, but then there's this whole other area that you're just not ready for. But anyway, I'm always just doing that striving and not really thriving. And even I was striving to figure out how to take thoughts captive. When my mentor challenged me to do that after I came through a depression in 2016, by golly, I'm going to do this. And then I heard Tim Keller, one of my favorite pastors, say that something that kind of released that valve for me. And it was that, yes, you are 100% responsible for your choices in the day and how you're navigating your life. And do I go left or right? Yes, but God is also 100% responsible for the transformative healing work that he does in your life. So it was that ironic kind of, yes, I have responsibility, but daggone it, I can't forget that God is really master of ceremonies here, and he does the work. I can't, if I'm an apple tree, I'm not striving to bear apples. They're a natural production of my being rooted in, the proper soil and environment and so forth. So anyway, so many analogies there. And you know what, we've just scratched the surface of this work that you've done, Erica. And again, I want to say it's an unexpected revival. We're going to put all the links to the book and your website in the show notes and the YouTube description of the video, but tell everyone as we close out here where they might contact you.
Yeah. Well, I would really encourage them to go to my website, ericawiggenhorn.com. I've got some free resources on there. There's actually 3 free ebooks that they can download in a bundle. And one of them it's a devotional ebook, and it's 50 days to intimacy with God. So we talked a lot about intimacy with God here today, Victoria, and maybe somebody's out there is like, I just don't feel that intimacy with God. I feel like I'm just checking the boxes and going through the motions. Go grab that devotional. Another free ebook on there in that bundle is The Busy Woman's Guide to Praying for Friends and Family. Maybe there's somebody out there saying, I try to talk to God. I try to be intimate with God, but it just feels very robotic. And, if you'd like some fresh ideas for your prayer life, that's part of that bundle as well. So I'd love for women to connect with me there. You can find me on Instagram just about every day. It's just my name, Erica Wiggenhorn. But I really want to encourage anyone out there listening, if you're not regularly in the Word, or you struggle to be in the Word, which I get, that was my story for so many years, Victoria, and really became the catalyst to me wanting to write Bible studies, is helping people get in the Word, stay in the Word, understand it, apply it, doing all the background work and kind of giving them that secret decoder ring of, this is what this means, and this is how we apply it to our lives today. So it's not so mysterious, if you will. Get in a study. Even if you grab just one friend and say, hey, do you want to go through this book with me? And you can go through it as quickly or take as much time as you need. I know I have several groups that instead of doing 1 week of the study in 1 week, they do it in 2 weeks because life is just so crazy. But grab community and get into a study, because it will help keep you on track. It will help grow your relationship with God, and it will transform your life. That is the whole purpose of this book, is to transform your life.
Yeah, amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Erica. We appreciate your time here today.
Thank you for having me.